Well, good evening and welcome to our first Meet the Author of 2026. I'm Rick Meredith. I'm the new president of Capital Crime, so bear with me. But we're in for a real treat tonight. And not only do we have an award-winning author, Claire Booth, as our guest, but our newest interviewer is none other than the equally fabulous writer, Jennifer Morita, a twofer. I should explain that we decided last year to double our Meet the Author events in order to showcase more of our members. So Myra Jolivet is teaming with Jennifer as alternative hosts every other month. On that subject, I hope you all saw the call for submissions in the email last week. It's detailed in the newsletter, and we sent out yesterday, and it's also on our website. But if you've published a book in 2025 or one's due out in 2026, I encourage you to fill out the application. Hopefully, you can get a spot on one of our 12. Is it 12? Yeah, I guess we're gonna have 12 Meet the Authors. Before I introduce Jennifer, who will then introduce Claire, I wanted to go over Capital Crime's upcoming schedule. We are looking forward to many exciting speakers and events starting at our monthly meeting this Saturday with Ask the Doctor, with a medical and forensic question and answer session with Dr. D.P. Lyle. In addition to his medical expertise, Dr. Lyle is an award-winning author. If you haven't responded to our email, Dr. Lyle would like your questions from the audience in advance. So check out your email or the link in the newsletter or our website for more information on that. On the 24th of January, Capital Crimes will have a table at the local author fair at Seat in the Table bookstore in Elk Grove, and come on by and say hello if you're around. On Tuesday, February 16th, our Meet the Author guest will be James Latoile. His latest book in the Emily Hunter series, Illusion of Truth, is garnering much deserved critical attention. A great interview. And on February 21st, our monthly meeting is a sidebar with Terrence Dwyer, who will discuss legal matters of concern to writers. One last item, we'll be sending out an email in this next week asking for volunteers to help set up a social media committee to expand our presence and get our message out. If you're interested and have experience with different platforms, please contact me. We need all the help we can get. Well, that's all the messages I have right now, but let me introduce our interviewer for tonight, Jennifer Morita. A former newspaper reporter, Jennifer K. Morita believes a good story is like a good mochi, slightly sweet with a nice chew. Her debut novel, Ghosts of Waikiki, won the 2025 Left Coast Crime Lefty Award and the McCavity Award for Best Debut Mystery, and was an Agatha and Anthony Award finalist. Ghosts of Waikiki releases in paperback on February 24th. Jennifer is a writer for University of Communications at Sacramento State. She lives here in Sacramento with her husband and two teenage daughters, and when she isn't plotting murder mysteries or pushing Girl Scout cookies, she enjoys reading, experimenting with recipes, Zumba, and hot hula. So with that, Jennifer, welcome, and thank you for taking on the task of the Meet the Author, and take it from here, please.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I am really looking forward to this because I've discovered I like asking the questions and not having to be on the other side answering them. So I got to know Claire when we were both on the Capital Crimes Board. As many of you probably know, she is a past president. So it is a huge pleasure to introduce Claire Booth, the two-time Lefty Award nominee for Best Mystery Novel and author of the Sheriff Hank Worth mystery series, including Home Fires and Throwing Shadows. A former journalist, Claire covered crime for daily newspapers in Missouri, Washington, D.C., South Florida, the Seattle region, and San Francisco Bay Area. Her articles have appeared in the Miami Herald, San Jose Mercury News, Philadelphia Inquirer, and Contra Costa Times. Claire's first book, The False Prophet: Conspiracy, Extortion, and Murder in the Name of God, is the true account of a Northern California man who convinced two followers he was a prophet of God and killed 5 people during a Bay Area crime spree. She has appeared in numerous crime TV shows, including People Magazine Investigates and City Confidential, talking about the case she first covered as a reporter. But after living with real-life murder and mayhem for so long, Claire turned to fiction so she could make up her own crimes. Throwing Shadows is Claire's 7th Sheriff Hank Worth book and is a finalist for this year's Lefty Award for Best Mystery Novel. So huge congratulations about that, Claire. So excited.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very exciting news. So
Yeah. It's two in a row too. So Home Fires was also nominated.
yeah, last year.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to get started by having you talk a little bit about just kind of introduce Hank and his world and some of the series regulars. So for the newbies who may not have read a book in your series yet.
Oh, okay. So Hank Worth is a former Kansas City police detective, and he moves down to Branson, which is in the south part of the state in the Ozarks, in order to help out his widowed father-in-law. He and his wife and their two young kids. They move down there and they move in with the father-in-law. So it's a multi-generational household, which does not go smoothly some of the time, at least. Wow, which is a lot of fun to write. Hank is married to Maggie McCleary, who is an emergency medicine doctor. She runs the ER at the Branson Hospital. So she is also in a profession where she's gone all the time. She works shifts just like Hank, and that's part of the reason they move in with the father-in-law is so that he can help, with their kids. Hank applies for a job just as a normal sheriff's deputy, but the actual sheriff had just won election to the legislature, so that job was vacant. And the county commission took one look at him and said, "Oh, nice, bright, shiny, big city cop." And they appointed him to be sheriff to fill that slot. And suddenly he's in charge of a budget and a staff and paperwork and all of these things that he's never done before. He's always just either been a patrol deputy or a detective. And now he has all of these new responsibilities and a new city to figure out. And so he tries to get his footing in that respect throughout the series.
And you have a great cast of characters, like the people that work with him, like Sheila and Sam. I love Sheila.
I do too. Sheila is his second in command, and she is older than he is. She's in her 50s. Hank's in his late 30s. She, by all rights, should be the sheriff. She's, no more experienced. She certainly takes no prisoners or, any guff from anyone. She's a very blunt character and very smart and savvy and definitely integral to, every book's investigation. I really enjoy writing her. Her personality is very different
Mm.
than Hank. Hank is much more laid back and a little bit more philosophical about things. Sheila's more head on, meet it with a, um, that kind of thing. So it's fun to, they're never pitted against each other, but to write them in contrast with each other as they go about, their investigations. And then the third one in the trio is Sam Carnes, who is the kid. Hank takes to calling him, at least in his head, he calls him the pup because he's just, this big floppy puppy of a young man who's trying to please and trying to learn and, sometimes goofing up. Um, but I would say, of everyone, has changed the most throughout the series. As he's gotten a little bit older, as one does in their mid-20s, there's a lot of change going on. And so his confidence has changed, his circumstances have changed, and that has made him a lot of fun to write too.
So many of your Hankworth mysteries start with something unique about the real Branson, Missouri, and the Ozarks. And so, can you tell us a little bit about what sparked the idea behind Throwing Shadows?
Oh, yes. So I was actually we were visiting Branson. My husband was born and raised there, and so we go back as often as we can, to see relatives. And my mother-in-law took me to lunch with part of her church group, and everyone's sitting around chit-chatting and having a good time. And when they found out what I did and what I write, one of the ladies leaned forward and she says, "Well, you've heard about Murder Rocks, right?" And I said, "What now? Everybody quiet. I need to hear this." And she ended up sending me this whole packet of information that she'd gathered. They were Xerox newspaper clippings and all sorts of things. And it was just this fabulous, fabulous story. And I was not ready in where I was in the series. So it got very carefully tucked away for a couple of books
Oh, okay.
until I was ready for that in terms of the overall arc of the series. And then I pulled it out. So
That's
murder, yeah.
that's really interesting.
I sat on it for a while. But Murder Rocks is real. And then also clearly a big part of the plot. During the Civil War, there was a wagon trail essentially that went from down in Arkansas up through the Ozarks to Springfield, Missouri, which was not as big as it is now, certainly, but one of the bigger cities in the southern half of Missouri. And there were, along this wagon train, there was this cluster of enormous boulders. And a group of bushwhackers would hide in these boulders and ambush travelers as they came by. This was, they robbed people, they killed people, they set fire to wagons. And it was this one particular group with one particular leader named Alf Bolin, who is still known throughout that area for, his criminality and his being merciless and all of that. So you had the real story, and then all of my fictionalized characters coming in and dealing with that real past that occurred in that area with those boulders and the villains.
And the mystery, supposed the treasure, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So there has always been a local legend. In real life, there is a local legend that Alf Bolin buried his treasure in the area. All of his ill-gotten thievery is buried in the area.
So you really got to highlight your love of history in this book, and you used a lot of first person accounts, like letters, right? And then you even created a podcast, which I thought was fun, or wrote a podcast, I should say. Can you talk a little bit about the research you did and kind of the decision of why you decided to use those things in your book?
Um, it kind of just came about as I started writing. I am not a plotter. I don't outline. I don't, do any of that. And so when I started, I knew the book was going to be about Murder Rocks. And so I had to come up with something that would take my characters into this section of woods, because it's still woods and undeveloped mountains in that area. So I had to get my characters into the backwoods. So how am I going to do that? What is going to happen? Who is going to discover the dead body? Why is that person himself in the woods. And so it just kind of came out of every decision I made then led to another decision until I was all, okay, well, now I've got to tell people why it's called Murder Rocks and why, you know, it's creepy and why there's local legend and all of this stuff. And that was the device that I came up with, that I'll do a podcast where I can then have that person referring to the history, referring to, this is all fictional, but referring to letters that they dug up in their research and telling the podcast listeners about the history and about Alf Bullen and what people believe about the treasure and that kind of thing, and doing it as if my characters are listening to this podcast, instead of, dumping a lot of backstory, right, and turning it into this dry history text, which of course is the exact opposite of what you want to be doing,
right,
as you're writing a novel. So
you do that really well. Like the dialogue that you have and the way you sort of weave like some of the backstory, like Sheila and what's happened in the book before this. You weave it in through a lot of dialogue, and it's really good. I think you do a really good job of that. And you kind of ease into that history too with some of the dialogue. Um, and one of the things that's interesting too is, I was, as I was reading it, they teach you in these workshops that you go to that you have to have a body really, really quickly. And you do that, but you do it in a way where there's a possibility of a body, a probability of a body, right? And then you bring in some dogs to actually find the bodies. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. Did you interview a dog handler or observe dogs doing this? Because it's kind of a fun, those were a fun couple of chapters.
They were really fun to write. I wish I'd been able to observe in person. I could never figure out an opportunity to do that. Oh geez, I'm blanking on her name. I think she's in Eastern Washington. She is a dog handler. She's fabulous. She's done several Sisters in Crime presentations on dog handling. That was super, super helpful. And then I was able to, because I couldn't get the in-person thing, there's some great YouTube, like long videos of training different types of dogs, whether it's a cadaver dog or whether it's a live find dog, like a missing person dog, and then the differences between those. And so I was able to see it happen. It just, unfortunately, or fortunately, thanks to YouTube, I was able to, because there just wasn't anything in my area that, I was able to do in person. But I enjoyed that too, because I hope I gave the dogs a little bit of personality too.
You did, yeah. I can tell you like dogs.
Yeah, yes, okay, that did help.
But one of the other things I really enjoy about this series is Hank's personal life. And you talked a little bit about this before, that, both he and his wife have very demanding careers. And they're also raising two young children. So can you talk a little bit about, why you chose this for Hank, and how that's helped you, and how he's progressed through the series, and how maybe it's helped create some tension or storylines for you?
Oh yeah, it definitely has. More so than I ever would have dreamed when I decided to give him that kind of a family. When I started, my chief goal, I guess, was that I didn't want more teenagers.
Mhm.
I didn't want a cop with, the estranged teenager or the moody 15-year-old girl, or, the son who gets in trouble. Like, I didn't want to go down that road.
Mhm.
So to me, the best opposite of that was, well, what if you have a 2-year-old? That's a whole different kind of demanding, right? And so to me, that was really interesting. And also then kind of bolstered the rationale for why they're in Branson in the first place, is that they need the father-in-law just like he needs them. It's not a one-way street.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I became able to help create the character of Duncan, who is the father-in-law, and how he relates to the kids, and how he relates then to the adults, well, his daughter, but then Hank in particular, who is his son-in-law, who can grate on his nerves. And he always feels a little bit, because it's Hank's house and Hank's family, and here's Duncan. And so you've got some tension there. And that I can dial up or down depending on the book.
Mhm.
There's some books that Duncan really isn't very much a part of, just with the way the plot ends up flowing. But then there are some books where he is very much a part of it. And that has been pretty useful, in terms of me being able to use him to either, provoke something or find a clue or irritate the heck out of Hank, whatever I need. He's a good character to do that. And then in Home Fires, he really takes center stage, and the whole series kind of spins because of something that I put him through.
So can you talk a little bit about the subplot involving him and Hank's family in this book? And the way, I mean, like you said, you carried it through several books. Um, so maybe talk a little bit about what's happening now, and then when or how you decided to finally put it in this one.
Well, so in this one, it's I guess the consequences, the after effects of what happened in Home Fires, which involved finding out something about Duncan's deceased wife. And so in finding that out, that changed Hank and Duncan's relationship. And so now in Throwing Shadows, they are both trying to come back from that, because their lives haven't changed, in that they still live in the same household. They still love the same 2 little kids that live in that household. But their relationship has changed. And so trying to navigate that new relationship without destroying, the whole thing. And so that is a big part of Throwing Shadows. Trying to tiptoe. Are they going to tiptoe around it? Are they going to blow up? Are they going to, what's going to happen?
It's nice to see, the way it impacts his personal life, but you get to see a law enforcement person with a normal family life, but the job that he does has an impact on that life, right? Because it's not easy to do what he does and have this normal family life.
Yeah. Yeah. And to for me, that is really important to get across.
Mhm.
And if you feel this way too from your reporting days, that you would see this, um, you would see police officers and how a case affected them, um, and how they handled it, and those kinds of things. And so it's really important for my books to reflect that,
Mhm.
that it's not like you solve the case and you go skipping home and everything's hunky-dory.
Right.
You like in A Deadly Turn, which was the third book, there was an enormous car crash and it killed 6 teenagers. And he, in the next book, I have him, like, something reminds him, and that comes back just, not as a plot point, but just as a, this really affected him and has stayed with him, that horrible, horrible thing. And, to reflect that, because I think that is reality. And so that's important to me, that it's not, all roses and butterflies.
Right. So this question may be unfair to ask, but you've published 7 Hankworth mysteries, and I know you turned in a manuscript for the 8th one. Plus, your first book was False Prophet. So I'm wondering, do you have a favorite book and why?
Um, oh, that's a good question. Uh, I guess I would have to put False Prophet aside, the nonfiction one aside, because that's such a different thing.
Mhm.
That might be the one I'm the most proud of.
Okay.
Um,
Because of all the reporting and the research and yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And as for my favorite, I don't know. I liked 2 was a lot of fun. Another Man's Ground, because that was when I felt comfortable.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I was like, okay, I can do this. And so when I think back on that book, I'm very fond of that book for that reason.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, because I find I'm so far finding book 2 harder and scarier.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, so here's another unfair question. Sorry. So who's your favorite character to write?
Now that's really like asking what your favorite kid is.
I know, right?
Your favorite kid is.
So personally, I think Sheila's my favorite. I love the things she says, and I love things that she does, like just hangs up on him.
Well, she's done with the conversation. What does she need
I
to?
know. I'm like, who hangs up on their boss?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that.
Okay, that's all right.
No, it's a very good, and maybe I guess it changes,
Okay, yeah,
you know.
the book or yeah.
The one I just turned in, um, Sam is pretty high.
Oh, yeah, he's cute. So speaking of, what can you tell us about the next Hankworth book and anything else you might be up to?
Well, I do not yet have a title.
Okay.
It's very bad. I'm hopeful that my editor will have some suggestions when she gets back to me. Because I got spoiled. I did have titles for the last 2, for Home Fires and Burning Shadows, and that was amazing. That was so a big stress reliever.
Yes.
And now I'm back to not having a title, which several of the earlier ones I didn't. So I'm back to how I used to be. But this one involves it's more of a family dispute.
Hank's family or
No,
Oh, okay.
no, the investigation is more of a the victim, it's every single person in the family has a motive and an opportunity, and so they've got to dig into all of the family dynamics, and they recently moved down to Branson, so they're trying to piece all of these things together. As far as the investigation goes. And then also Sheila was attacked several books ago, and that goes to trial.
Oh, okay.
So that's the other big plot line is what happens with that, and how that affects her.
Mm-hmm.
So that was enormously fun to write, because that brought back my court reporting days of sitting and watching trials. So I really enjoyed that part.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that. One other question. So if you could write and publish any kind of book, what would your dream project be?
That's a good question. I'd like to branch out into standalones.
Okay.
So, it would be nice to be able to do those kind of sprinkled in, with a series. But I do love my series type books. That's what I always just lived for when I was growing up, were all the series books.
Yeah, me
would
too.
find
I
one and
still
you
really
devour the whole thing,
yeah.
and so I have a real soft spot for probably always having a series going, even if it's not Hank. But then you being able to do some standalones as well.
Do you think because with standalones, you can finish it and put it away and then just go on to something completely different? Is that why you want to do a standalone?
Yeah, I think so. Especially after, so long with a series, that holds a certain attraction. Just doing a one-off.
Yeah.
And potentially can kill everybody off.
That's true, right? You don't have to worry about
there's no, okay, I gotta save somebody because do a contract.
Okay, so I think we can open up to questions from the audience, and I saw several flashing on the screen.
Hi.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Claire. Okay, I have some questions for you. Karen asked, in Throwing Shadows, where did you get the idea to weave in historical letters?
When I came up with the idea for the podcast, and started writing that in the voice of the the podcast host, it became pretty apparent that I needed more than just him talking. And with the way the book went, I didn't want him to have like guests, I didn't want a history professor or whatever. Like, some podcasts do. And so I was all, well, how can I get this information in there? And so I started reading. I went online and I dug through primary sources. And so, I pulled out letters from generals to captains and, among all military men, and then family ones. So from the soldier to the wife, or the brother to the soldier, or, those kinds of things. And I just read as many of those as I could get my hands on to absorb the voice of that time. And then I just wrote what I needed them to say for that piece of the podcast.
Cool. Hey, Donna asked, what inspired you to have a sheriff as your protagonist?
Well, at the point when I started, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I'd written the true crime, and decided to switch to fiction. And I wanted to get as far away from my life as possible. So I had no interest in doing a journalist protagonist or anything like that.
See.
The other thing that I knew was from reporting, I always reported on cops and courts and prosecutors and defense attorneys and all of those things. And so I knew that well enough to write it, but it was far enough away from me that it was good. And so that was why I chose a cop. And then the sheriff, like, I needed a big enough area. So not a police chief for just one, I wanted the whole county. So that was why it was a sheriff in particular.
Cool. Yeah. Brenda came up with a good question. She says, were there writing resources you consulted to help in learning to write a series? Or if not, what tips did you learn that would be helpful for writers who are aspiring to write a series?
Well, I think my greatest resource was being a bookworm of a teenager. That I just devoured those kinds of books. And so, I was familiar with the feel of them, even if it was a cozy as opposed to, a procedural or what have you. That was my primary education. What I will say about them is that you need the convention of one crime per book, and you got to solve it, because that's the pact you have with the reader. And so you've got that nut, but then because it's a series, you have your umbrella, which is your character arcs. So your characters need to change. And that can go through the books. That is not something that you need to tie up at the end of the book like you do the crime. And so giving a lot of thought to, not committing yourself to, character A is going to need to go from here to here by the end of the series. You don't need to do that. I certainly haven't done that. But, here is how I'm starting him off. Like Sam, I started him off as he was 22 or 23 and tripping over his own feet. And he just started being a deputy, and book by book, he's gotten more self-assured and more able to, find legitimate ways to move the investigation forward. And we've branched out more into his personal life, and that's kind of gradually evolved. And I couldn't have told you at the beginning exactly how I was going to do that, but just by virtue of creating him in that way, it was like, okay, I've got to take him in this direction. And that's not to say that at some point I'm not going to knock him flat somehow, but as long as you're giving that thought to your main characters, because that is what's going to keep them coming back, what keep readers coming back for the next one.
That's a great answer. And Claire Thomas asked another one, another Claire. She asked one that might kind of go right along with this. She asked, when you started, did you know you were writing a series? And if so, how did that shape book one?
I did know I was writing a series. It was a 2-book deal. So I was in the lovely position of being in that position that I knew I had at least one more. And I knew that because I had put him into the sheriff job in the way that I did, I knew I would have to make him run for election. And so right there, that was my second book.
Oh, okay.
So I did always know that was what I was writing. I didn't always know, I mean, when I was writing the first one, I did not have a deal in any way, shape, or form. So I was just writing it, but my intent was, this is going to be a series. These are characters I'm going to live with.
Okay. Dover asked one similar to this too. How fast do the kids grow up between the books, and how do you handle writing the different ages?
So I've kind of, let's see, do I have it here? Oh, here it is. Okay. So, and this, none of this was intentional, but I don't know how well you can see that. I ended up having to on old-fashioned paper because that's how I think. So book one took place President's Weekend. Book two was just a couple months later. And then I've got, and now I'm on the second sheet. So just by the way it happened, like book two had to be when it did because the tree bark, it concerned the theft of tree bark. Like people would go out into the woods and strip trees of their bark for medicinal teas.
Huh.
And like there's a certain time of year you do that, so that locked me in to that. Um, and then that's pretty much been what's caused most of them. Like there's something about where it's got to be a certain time of year based on the plot. Um, which I think is it's a long-winded way of saying uh a, a lot of the books happened within a year's time. So they didn't really grow that much. The biggest leap in time in the whole series is actually the book that I just finished.
Okay.
That was, let's see, more. Yeah, that was the biggest chunk in time. That was almost a year. So now they are 6 and 8.
Okay.
So there's not a whole lot of time jumping, which again was not any kind of forethought thing on my part. It was just more, oh shoot, I've got to set this in May because that's when all these thefts happen, you know. So more just that kind of backing into it type of thing.
So you let the kids grow up with the storyline, really.
Yes. So yeah, they're gonna keep getting older. It just how much depends on, you know, how much time I let lapse. Yeah.
Okay. June wanted to know what kind of favorite series you had as a child that you read as a child.
Ooh. June. But they all just leave my head. Uh, um, I love Trixie Belden. Of course, I read all the Nancy Drews. And I read Agatha Christie really young. Um, so those and oh gosh.
That's good.
Yeah. No, those types of ones. Like I don't, there's so many good quality ones nowadays that weren't around. You know, when I was in middle school. So I think that's why I went straight to, you know, stuff like Agatha Christie. Once you've read Trixie Belden 5 times, you move on.
You can only get hooked for so long.
Yes.
Karen Phillips wants to know if you actually did go out to Murder Rocks and if you got a vibe.
I did not get to.
Oh,
The way our trips back there fell, that did not end up being possible, which I was really disappointed.
next time.
Yes, next time. But I am thrilled to report that, well, so in the book, I put it on state land. It's not a
That's right.
privately owned thing, but in real life, it is privately owned. And I am thrilled to report that the landowners loved the book.
Oh, good. Phew. Dover wanted to know what one trial in history would you have loved to have been a reporter for?
Mm. Ooh. Um, oh, there's so many. Uh, the Manson trial would have been interesting. That had a lot of societal undercurrents to it. Um, um, I would have loved to have been reporting back in the heyday in like the 40s and the 50s, where they would the New York papers would have a correspondent and who would essentially jet in to all the big trials all over the country and do coverage every day. They'd get a story in the paper every day, and that would have been just a ball. I'd love to have done that. And some of those older cases, and the older laws and courts and stuff like that would have, I think, been very cool to do as a reporter.
It would have been cool. You said that the homeowners liked the book. The homeowners of the property of Murder Rocks liked the book. But Albert's asking if you ever had any other feedback from the people of Branson about your books.
Yeah.
In-laws?
No, it's been very positive. It's certainly not a college town where you've got 80% of the population shops at a bookstore. But no, I've gotten very positive feedback. My books are the Branson Centennial Museum stocks them, which I just love. Yeah, I have not gotten any negative feedback. That doesn't mean there's not, negative out there. But I have not.
So if you go,
nobody's been ticked off enough to bother to write. How about that?
Okay. So if you walk into the local diner, are you going to have people ask you for your signature on a book or your autograph?
Highly doubtful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was just my question. It wasn't anybody else's.
I will travel incognito.
Oh, okay.
In that nobody knows who I am.
Okay. Lana wants to know what your favorite all-time book is. I'm assuming that means what you read, not what you wrote.
That's funny because I guess probably my top two, neither one is crime fiction. Shogun is one of my absolute all-time. And Dune.
Oh.
The science fiction.
Yeah. Well, I know that we're getting close to the end, but I have one more question from me is, are you going to ever think about starting another series?
Actually, definitely not something I would rule out, certainly. I think it would depend on how well I think I've satisfied Hank, if that makes sense. Enough, if I've satisfied that enough to move on to another kind of series.
Great.
So probably, but not for sure.
I got one question before we go.
Oh,
are you having any book signings in Branson?
Not in. Oh no, I take that back. Yes, I've had. They have a Books a Million there, and then I've done the Barnes and Noble in Springfield and some ones up in St. Louis.
Nice.
So.
Well, any other questions while we don't have any minutes left. That's about it. let me thank you very much, Claire. There's a wonderful, wonderful book. It
Oh,
was a
thank
wonderful
you.
interview.
And Jennifer, thank you so
And-
much.
And Jennifer, thank you. That was wonderful. I can't
It
wait
was
to see
my
the next
pleasure.
one
I
you
had a
do.
lot of fun.
And Chris, thank you. And I hope to see you all Saturday at 1 o'clock where we have Ask the Doctor. And we'll have some more updates on what's going on then. So thanks everybody for attending, and see you next time.
Thank you
Good
so much,
night.
everybody.
Thanks so much.